Welcome back to PCOS Healing Adventure with me, Dr. Ami Patel, pharmacist and fellow sister. I'm super excited that in today's video, I have with me dietitian Emily Battiato, and we're going to be discussing why diet and nutrition is so important for PCOS, as well as some tweaks that you can make to your diet so that you can still continue to enjoy the foods you love, but making them more PCOS friendly. So let's go ahead and connect with Emily. Today on my episode, I have with me dietitian Emily Battiato. She's a registered dietitian and she works with patients that have PCOS and primarily insulin resistance. So I'm so excited that you were able to join me today. Thank you so much, Emily. If you can, please give us a little bit of an introduction of yourself.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me today. I'm so excited to be here with you. I know we've been talking a lot before this, so it's nice to finally be here. We're doing the real thing. and definitely, I'm happy to share. Basically, my story is I didn't start off as a dietitian. I actually used to be a teacher, and I decided to trade in my teaching certificate for a dietitian degree, because I have PCOS as well as insulin resistance myself. And my journey started way back almost 3 decades ago when I was 5 years old. I doubled my weight. Nobody knew what was going on with me. The doctors had no answers, and I was put on my very first diet plan, which as a 5-year-old, not fun. And so, what's that?
A 5-year-old? That's awful.
5-year-old. Oh yeah, first dietitian. 5 years old. I had the red list, the green list, the yellow list. And while all the kids were eating Oreos, I was munching on my carrot sticks. So that's where it all began. I didn't actually get a diagnosis of PCOS until I was about 12. Whenever, your body is supposed to be changing, you're supposed to get your period around that time. And I saw an endocrinologist who said, "We think you might have PCOS." And so I became a teenage lab rat. I started participating in all these studies down at Children's Hospital in Pittsburgh and trying to figure out what is going on with my body and how can we make some strides here in managing PCOS for myself and others. And so as an adult, still, the struggle with no answers, trying to figure out what's going on with my body. And ultimately, I started sharing my story, and I realized all of my fellow teachers had similar stories too. There were so many women who had PCOS. And I decided to go back to school, get my dietitian degree, and find some answers for myself and everybody else. And so here I am. I not only provide education to women with the insulin resistance and PCOS, but, providing nutrition and lifestyle and mindset changes to get those lasting results. That's what I do. And no looking back.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And, I'm so happy we were able to connect because you were sharing your story and I started sharing my story recently. And that's why we're here today, which is awesome. And, so I started trying to manage my PCOS a lot last year, and it was around the time of COVID. So actually, I was looking for a dietitian at the time, but unfortunately, because of COVID, people were like not seeing their appointments, and then things were backed up. And then this was before they decided to start making virtual appointments. And so during that time frame, I kind of felt like I had to figure it out on my own. And then, of course, I went to Google, and then I found those lists that you're talking about, like don't eat bananas, peas, carrots if you have PCOS. And I didn't really know better. And I love eating those things, but I was like really desperate to get my symptoms under control. So I was like, okay, I'm going to stop eating those things. And unfortunately, it did stop for like 5-6 months until I realized and learned that I don't have to do that if I enjoy eating those foods. So, I wish that I had met you at a time like that. And that's why I wanted to invite you onto my channel so that you can give us some guidance on where we women with PCOS can start, adjusting our diet and nutrition. So, one of the first questions I have is why diet and nutrition is so important for PCOS.
That is the big, big question, isn't it? Because truly, in my own personal journey, as you've experienced as well, and I'm sure a lot of people who are watching this too have realized that when you type in PCOS into Google, it all becomes, like you said, those lists of you can't have this, you can't have that, you can't have this, and it becomes one big giant red list, flashing back to being a 5-year-old with the red list. And it really feels like, what can you actually eat? And so being able to understand why that's what you come across on Google is because nutrition plays a really big role in managing PCOS, simply because the foods that we eat can directly impact our hormones, particularly our blood sugar, which then can impact our insulin. And that insulin, especially if you have insulin resistance, which means that your body isn't able to process that sugar that you're eating into energy, get it into the cells, and is going to be stored as fat. It just can fuel our inflammation. It can fuel our and drive our symptoms and just make our PCOS so much worse. And so the good news is that, and the reason I decided to become a dietitian and why I chose this field, is because studies have shown that nutrition is a huge, huge factor and a good first step to be able to manage those symptoms. So what can happen is, for example, if we eat a food that's high in carbohydrates, low in fiber, for example, white bread, it can cause our blood sugar to spike in a very short period of time. And as a result, our body will start to produce insulin to try to bring that blood sugar down. And the way it does that is by taking that sugar and putting it into the cell, we use it as energy. But if the body can't do that, it's just going haywire. And so if we can, and then eventually store it as fat. And so if we can basically manage that process from the very beginning where food starts, we can then be able to manage our insulin. And then all those factors, the fat storage, the weight gain, the high levels of testosterone, the hair growth in places we don't want it, the hair loss in places we don't want it, that's where we can really target those symptoms, is nutrition. Yeah. So that's kind of my little nutritional biochemistry 101, but it's so incredibly important.
No, that makes sense, because it's like, if you're trying to manage those other symptoms, like the hair loss you said, or hair growth, but you're not trying to, the underlying cause is the insulin resistance, increase in insulin, which is caused by food that you're eating, then, you can continue to treat those other symptoms, but eventually they're not going to get better unless one of the changes you can make is the diet, because that's, one of the reasons that the insulin goes up, like you were saying. So without getting into the red list, yellow list, green list, or things you can't eat, so how can we balance our diets so that there's foods we can eat, or what are modifications we can make to the diets that we have now without going like extreme, so it's like not sustainable?
Exactly. Great question, because that's the key that you said right there. I love the word sustainable, because it is such a good word and it is so true. So thank you for saying that, because a lot of times when I have women come to me, which I should have noted too, by the way, I do virtual. All of my entire practice is virtual. And so I have people coming to me from all over the country, and even international people as well. And a lot of them will say like, oh, well, I eliminated this. I tried this fad diet. I tried this restrictive diet, and it didn't work. And oftentimes it works at the beginning when we taketh away all of the things, but then eventually it's just not sustainable long term, and we just feel even worse. And sometimes it actually can make our insulin resistance worse, as I've learned with some of those super, super restrictive diets, especially with carbs, because our body does utilize carbs for many purposes. So some action steps to be able to help with that, where to start is to add, not subtract. Because when we start focusing on subtraction, our body and our mind even starts to feel punished like a toddler. And what happens when you tell a toddler no?
They do it more.
It's that much more tempting, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so what I like to do with my clients is say, okay, we're going to focus on the foods that you can have. And those include higher fiber foods that are going to help manage that blood sugar spike. It's going to help, instead of going a big spike, it's just going to go kind of a nice little level situation there, as well as anti-inflammatory to target the low grade low grade inflammation that many of us tend to have. And so what this looks like are lean proteins like chicken, turkey, things like that. But also, if you don't do animal, proteins, that's okay. There's plenty of other options as well, non-animal sources, beans, legumes, and things like that. And I'll get into a couple more here shortly. But you can have fruit. People say no fruit. You can have fruit. Fruit has antioxidants in it. That's really good for us. We just have to watch how much. And, there's also tricks that I teach my ladies too on how to pair it with certain foods to help, again, reduce that spike in blood sugar. Lots of tasty vegetables that are high in fiber, whole grains, and especially the unsaturated fats too, those healthy fats. And those are going to help with the inflammation. So that's my main number one action step. Add, focus on what you can have fun with it, make your plate colorful rather than subtract. But I even have a plate that I use. It's like a plate diagram that my clients can print out that shows, every single time that you sit down for a meal, it's like a checklist. Make sure a quarter of your plate is a protein of some sort. A quarter of your plate is going to be some sort of high fiber carbohydrate. And then half of it being non-starchy vegetables. And then a little bit of a healthy fat. So like 1 or 2 tablespoons or so. And a drink, which, as we're talking, check. So yes, that's been, now I can go into, listing some of the foods and everything, but I also don't want to ramble on. I want to give you some time to talk to you because you talked with me. I can go all day long.
What about okay, so one thing we talked about was like white bread. So if someone say they don't like wheat bread or multigrain bread and they love white bread, how can they adjust or modify their current diet so that they can still enjoy maybe white bread in moderation or have it, but still try to balance their diet so they don't get the spikes?
Absolutely. Great. I'm loving this. Good question. So, because isn't that the key, is the moderation and being able to include. So what we're talking about, adding or even maintaining some of those foods that we enjoy. Now it's okay to limit some, don't go hog wild with the Oreos or anything, but it doesn't mean you can't ever have them again. And so the white bread, great example. If you want to be able to include something that is, as they call it, a simple carbohydrate, which doesn't have a lot of fiber in it, what you can do is pair it with something that's going to steady that slow spike. It's going to cause it, instead of a big spike, it's going to be a slow or steady spike. And that's something that's a healthy fat. That's something that's going to be high in fiber. And also too, you can even pair it with something that's a protein source, because proteins have a tendency to make us feel more full. Yeah. So does fiber, so does fat. So that means then we'll be less inclined to eat more of the white bread, because the white bread, when that blood sugar spikes, we tend to get hungrier at the end of the meal too. So as an example, if you're going to have a slice of white bread, have something with it. You can even have a little almond butter or something like that on it, or if you do dairy, even having a little bit of maybe a little grilled cheese with some, good, not non-processed cheese, just a little bit. Or you can even have like a side of almonds or something like that. But those are higher fats. And I want to note too, the dairy conversation, the gluten conversation. You can't have a conversation about PCOS without somebody mentioning about that. And that's where you listen to your body. Your body is unique. PCOS affects us all differently. That's why it's a syndrome. And so if your body doesn't tolerate dairy, your body doesn't tolerate gluten, then it might be a good idea to kind of keep an eye on that and limit those. But if you have an allergy to it and you're going to be rushed to the ER, that's the only time I would tell you, like, absolutely, I would just please stay away.
Actually, I posted a video recently, a couple weeks ago, on like journaling and monitoring your symptoms. So if you guys missed that video, check that out. And in that, I talk about why, knowing your body, being in tune with your body, you can understand those symptoms that Emily just mentioned. And then you have a reason to try to eliminate if you want to, not just because somebody else did it and it worked for them, or you keep seeing it on Instagram or Google that you should do this. But, once you know your body, then you'll see if you should do that and if it's effective for you.
Absolutely. Please check that video out because that is incredibly important and such a useful tool to be able to follow. So thank you for putting that out there, because that really is, we all got to slow down and just listen to our bodies a little bit more, but how do you do it? So awesome.
And then like you were saying about pairing, like, I had stopped eating bananas and peas. Peas are like really common in vegetable that we use in Indian food. And then after, I learned about pairing those items, if I eat a banana, then I usually have almond butter or peanut butter. Or if I don't want to eat that, then I just take like a handful of mixed nuts to kind of pair it out like you were mentioning.
Yeah. And as you're saying that too, I'm actually trying to recall my breakfast this morning, that having even like an egg with it and some sliced avocado, that we rock some serious avocado toast in this house. It is delicious.
I love
and it's going to keep you feeling full, because after you eat something like that, where you have your banana, because again, bananas are always the ones that it's like, oh, you got PCOS, no bananas for you.
Bananas. I was so sad about that. So I'm so happy, like, okay, I can eat them now and I know how to eat them in a smarter way.
Yes. And how do you feel when you pair your carbohydrate like that with something that's going to slow that blood sugar spike and insulin spike? How do you end up feeling after you eat that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm satisfied. Like, okay, I'm eating what I like to eat, first of all. So that's good. So I'm not like craving things later. Like, okay, I ate something I didn't enjoy. So then obviously I'm going to be thinking about foods that I wish I ate instead. So that part is like eliminated now. And then, like you talked about, once we give our body the nutrition it needs, we stop having those crazy cravings, or they're more controllable and we're satisfied overall. So I feel like that has gotten a lot better for me and my insulin resistance. And, as I feel like we make the changes, then our insulin resistance gets better, then overall we start feeling better. So then it's just like a cycle that starts going in a positive direction, as opposed to like downward spiral that we may feel sometimes.
And that cycle, I'm sure everybody can relate to, has experienced, or may still be experiencing, where you're told all of the things you can't have, you can't do, the things that bring us joy. And food is a comfort for many of us.
Mm-hmm.
And then, okay, so you're restricting, you start to see results. And then all of a sudden you start to feel like, wait, I am so restricted. I go to a birthday party, or it's my birthday and I can't have cake at my own birthday. Like, what? And then you eat it and then you feel bad about it and you beat yourself up, and then it just goes around again and you try the next diet and the next restrictive, and it's not sustainable. And the stress from all of that can also make our hormones go out of whack and make our journey that much harder. So sustainability is huge. Feeling full, managing those cravings, like you said, all of these things can help with that, but also learning to still enjoy food, because it's not a punishment. It's meant to nourish your body.
Emily, we discussed some items that we can pair together, like, banana and the mixed nuts. And like you were saying, with the white bread sandwich you can have. So what are some other examples of pairings that can be done?
Yeah, absolutely. For a really detailed list, I actually just created a blog post on my website. It's www.pcoswc.com, which, and you said you're going to link it in the description there. So if you want even more in-depth details on how to pair foods, different ideas, by all means, I got you covered. I'm going to list them there so you don't have to write it all down. But if you want to be able to assemble it yourself and have some examples of different types of foods that you can use, some great proteins that you can incorporate that are lean proteins. You know, you got skinless chicken, tuna, cod, different types of fish, turkey. And for those, if you're not doing the animal proteins, no worries. There's plenty of options as well that are super tasty, including even like black beans and lentils and stuff like that. And, you know, a hot tip there, lentils actually are the most nutrient dense of the legumes. So they are a fantastic option, super filling, great nutrients. So definitely encourage you to try those. And even if you eat animal proteins, give it a try. Try to incorporate some of these, you know, non-animal proteins as well. As far as the carbohydrates go, being able to focus on ones that are higher fiber and more complex carbs is what they're called. So some examples of that would be whole grains like quinoa, brown rice, and old-fashioned oats, not the instant ones because those are processed and they take a lot of the fiber and extra nutrients out. Fruit is another option, and especially berries because they do have fiber in them and they're also lower in carbohydrates, but also super tasty, antioxidants, tons of nutrients. So if you want to, with berries, actually my favorite pairing that I love because I love fruit is having a handful of almonds, unsalted almonds, because I got to watch my blood pressure, and pairing it with some raspberries. So good. Or even making some sort of like chia pudding. And that includes chia seeds, which are a healthy fat, as well as walnuts, almonds we talked about, flaxseed, and plenty of different options there. But also my favorite, little dark chocolate.
I was gonna say you should have a dark chocolate with the almonds and raspberries. That, yeah, I was gonna say you're missing something there.
Now we're talking. Now we're talking. And see, again, it's like, again, foods that you enjoy, foods that you can have. And even if you're not a fan of the dark chocolate, it's okay. Just having a little bit, just you know, a little bit, but having it paired with the berries and paired with the nuts. And then vegetables sometimes get a bad reputation. People are like, I don't really care for vegetables, especially the non-starchies, like, you know, green beans, the greens that actually are, you know, with your lettuce, romaine, things like that, asparagus, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, zucchini. You want to grill some zucchini, marinate it in a little bit of like Italian dressing, grill it. It's amazing. Have fun with it. Try roasting, try different ways to approach vegetables to make your plate colorful and delicious. So if you want to create your own pairings, there's kind of just a quick list for you. But like I said, I'll make sure to put it on my website, or I actually have my blog post ready to roll so that you can check that out for more information.
Yeah, and you know, if you guys try any of these things out, tag us on Instagram. And I think what you mentioned earlier about like adding more or experimenting. So actually what I've been doing is like, you know, every time I go to the grocery store, I actually get like a vegetable and fruit box mailed to me. But if you guys are not doing that, then what you can do is, you know, challenge yourself that once a week, I'm going to get one new vegetable, or even, you know, once every 2 weeks or once a month, whatever you're comfortable with. You know, challenge yourself to get at least like one new vegetable and trying to incorporate that in your diet. And actually I've started to do that and I'm like, oh, I actually really like this. And, you know, it adds more variety, I think, adds different flavors. And I feel like I had like a misconception that, oh, I don't like asparagus. And I never tried it. Or I did, and I didn't eat it for years, but like that was one of my challenge foods that I added. And I'm like, oh, I actually like it. And I think, you know, as you get older and your taste buds change, you may actually like things that you didn't like before, or you're, you know, learning to cook it better or differently. So, you know, that's a challenge you guys can try to add more into your diet.
Great idea. Great idea. And then with that, when you're eating, because when you get those boxes like that, you're eating seasonally.
Yeah,
So,
that. Mhm.
and you might be helping a local business as well in the process, and you know where your food's coming from, which is great. But I love that idea to challenge yourself to be able to try different things, because it's so true that our taste buds not only change as we get older, but also we have a tendency when we're not eating as much sugar, and the taste buds actually have some time to change. And so berries, when you start to reduce your sugar intake, and we're talking like white sugar and sweets and baked goods and all those delicious things, when we start to reduce how much we have of that, our taste buds actually can change
Mhm.
and start to notice that, hey, berries actually are a little bit sweeter. That dark chocolate tastes a little bit better.
Yeah.
So that's another added benefit to being able to incorporate more of these things. You
Mhm.
don't have to cut that stuff out necessarily, just, moderation, keep it an eye, but having fun in the kitchen, making food and eating an enjoyable experience, not focusing on, well, here's the red list. I can't have this. I can never have this. I can never have this, all because of my PCOS. So yes, try a food challenge. Absolutely. Have fun in the kitchen. Enjoy it. Mix and match some things. That's a great idea.
My sister and friends noticed like I didn't like berries. I thought they were sour, and now I eat them like all the time. And my sister and she's like, "Oh, since when do you like berries? Since when do you eat mushrooms and broccoli?" And I'm like, "I like those things now because yeah, like we said."
You. Good for you. That's great. So you're incorporating all of these extra things. So now you have even more of a variety, more options in your arsenal of, okay, what can I have for dinner tonight? What can I cook with? It opens up an entire, and plus we've got Pinterest. I mean, Pinterest has so many options. If you just type in a mushroom recipe, now you can, have all that available to you. But I experienced the same thing. Actually, my mom and I were talking over Easter, and she goes, I said, oh yeah, I'm making asparagus. I put roasted tomatoes on top of it with just a little bit of Parmesan on top. And she goes, you're making tomatoes? My daughter is making tomatoes. You hate tomatoes. I said, I am 30 something years old, Mom. I actually enjoy tomatoes now when they're roasted and cooked a certain way. I love balsamic vinaigrette in there. She was shocked. I'm like, yes, I'm an adult. I've been an adult for a while and tried a lot of new things. So shocked her too. But isn't that wonderful? You have some more options available to you. That's great.
Yeah, thank you for the list, and we can all check out your blog post and see that in detail. So if our viewers want to connect with you, what are some ways that they can reach out to you?
Absolutely. I'm friendly. I'm the friendly dietitian, not like the 4 or 5 that I was afraid of growing up that I saw. But you can actually get in touch with me. I have a website. It's www.pcoswc.com. And the reason for that acronym is because my Instagram, Facebook, and even now I'm on TikTok now. Thanks to your support and my husband. Oh my goodness, having fun with that is pcos.wellness.coach. And on as far, I also offer one-on-one coaching still. I've been doing that virtually for a while now. I've been in the online space for a very long time, coaching people, hundreds of people. My before my private practice, that's what I did. And now I continue doing one-on-one, and it's all just like this Zoom. And I have a free 30-minute call that I offer that you can schedule either through my Instagram. You can send me a DM on there. You can schedule it through my website. So I offer that, and super excited to be able to announce that I have a Mastering Insulin Resistance with PCOS toolkit. Basically, it's a course that will be available, that is available as of May 1st of 2021.
That's right around the corner. Yay.
Yes, yes.
Exciting. So I'll put a link to your website in the description box below. And if you guys have any questions about our conversation today, or if you have any other topics that you want Emily and I to discuss on here, then leave that in the comment section below too. Emily, once again, thank you so much for taking the time out to come on here and have this discussion with me. I think it was really educational.
Thank you so much for having me. I was so excited. This is my YouTube debut. I am so excited. Thank you. And everybody out there, please subscribe to her channel. She is such a wonderful human being. She just has some wonderful tips, and just, I am so thankful for what you do. And please follow her, check her out. And she's also on Instagram too. That's how we met. And I truly, it was wonderful being here with you today. And I hope you have.
Yes, follow me on Instagram at PCOS Adventure and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. As always, thank you for watching my video. Remember, be kind to yourself, be patient, and focus on progress and not perfection. I'll see you guys next time.